everybody. First of all, we have a very fabulous person in the building. And her name, she was trying to teach me how to pronounce the name. Not trying, she actually thought it. I was a champ. But now I forgot.
You were.
Can you please help me again? Thank you.
Absolutely, no problem. So it's pronounced it's pronounced Kui, so like Chloe without the L, and then Mwai, kind of like Hawaii. That's like my little cute little helpful thing for people.
I'm just daydreaming. We should be close friends because
We
with your name,
should.
I can actually go to bed and think like I'm in Hawaii. And I'm like, oh,
You know, that's what the effect I want to have on people. You know what I mean? I want you to feel relaxed. I want you to feel good, ideally on vacation.
so was that what inspired you to get into podcasting, or what's the story there?
Yeah, absolutely. So I started off as a writer in journalism in the media space. And that's still the foundation of my career. It's still the bulk of my career. I love to write. I think of myself as a writer first. And, I thought a lot about, okay, what are some different ways
Huh.
that I can tell stories? And podcasting coincidentally was coming up at the time. This is a couple of years ago. And I was like, wow, this is a cool media to communicate with an audience in a really unique way, in my opinion. And so it felt like a natural progression for what I want to try to do with my career and how I want to talk to people. And yeah, and when I started, I got the bug and I couldn't go back. I was like, oh my gosh, I need to do more of this. I absolutely love the medium so much, and I love working in the space.
Music to my ears to see anyone who's in love with what they do, and I'm in love with you right now. No, no jokes.
Oh my gosh, the feeling is mutual. We're on a
No
date.
joke. Yes, this is an official. Okay, yeah, great. Welcome to our date, guys. Chloe and Gwen, and we are in the building, and we're going to talk about something very important that's going to be beneficiary to you as a podcaster, as a journalist. And so we're going to talk about leveraging podcasts to amplify underrepresented stories in African landscape. We are Africans. We all know that is the story of our lives. But here I met Chloe, who has this beautiful medium, not just to tell stories and whine like some of us do on podcasting because we are bored, but she's actually telling stories that change lives and stories that people need to
Yeah.
get out there. And today we want to talk about that. How can we use podcasting to stop being like a noisemaker and actually through what we do? Because a lot of podcasting programs, podcasters who are actually doing amazing things. While there are some of us who we're bored, we just come on and we have a mic and we just start spewing things. So
Yeah.
if you're on that table, stay tuned. Because Chloe is going to lecture us and teach us and show us the best way to be in this time and age. So the first question for you, Chloe, is this. Yeah, she also rhymes with vacation. Her last name, yeah. Oh, we can understand that, right, Chloe? What made you feel podcasting was the best medium to use in telling the stories that were not really heard in mainstream media?
Absolutely. Well, I think it's funny. I was hearing you talk about like how most people's podcasting journey, or a good amount of people's podcasting journey, is just a glass of wine and getting on the mic. And that was 1,000% how I got started in this industry and in this medium. It was the height of the pandemic. I don't need to explain to you guys what the vibes were. We were all bored. We were all isolated. We were all afraid. It was a really weird time. And I was living with my friend in the US at the time. And, we found ourselves to kill the time, but also as a part of our bonding, talking about all of these aspects of life that we were really grappling with, things like love life, career, personal growth, ex-boyfriends, new boyfriends, all of that stuff. And we felt like these conversations were really helping us sorting through our
Okay.
own feelings and figuring out what we wanted to do with the next chapter of our lives. And so we're like, why don't we just do it? Why don't we get on the mic and why don't we share some of these thoughts, hoping that maybe somebody will relate, maybe somebody could help us on our journeys, maybe we could help somebody else on their journey. So I think that is really the core of podcasting. There's nothing like having a conversation with somebody. And podcasting is this really magical thing. While even though there is this understanding that you are a host and you're talking to lots of people, as listeners, you do feel like somebody is talking directly to you. It does have this way
Mm-hmm.
of mimicking a real conversation. And I think that is really the power of the medium. I often feel like when you take away additional stimuli, like visual content, like, like these big action scenes that you see in movies, which are fantastic, when you shut that all away, all you really have is connecting with somebody. And I think that
Exactly.
podcasting uniquely fosters that sort of connection.
And that is a beautiful way to put it because like you said, COVID actually skyrocketed everything that happened with podcasting and podcasters
Yeah.
and people finding or connecting with your creative side and people
Hmm.
sharing their stories that they have in the home or how they survive living
Hmm.
in isolation. That was beautiful.
Thank
So,
you.
in a nutshell, guys, in case you don't understand what we're saying, is she found motivation from getting the wine and spewing things about personal lives on the mic to
Yes.
really get it into the stories that matter. And that brings me to my next question is how did you learn? Or what's your advice for people who have stories but they don't have the power of storytelling? Like, the story is as good as the telling.
Yeah.
You may have a great story, a fantastic experience, but the way you tell it is the icebreaker. Is it what makes it great or
Hmm.
nothing? So how did you find that power, that balance? And you can share me your tips and tricks, girl, because I not getting no wine, but I have water.
That's a great question. I think it's interesting. I think it's not a skill that I think you ever perfect. I think it's something that is constantly evolving. I have been a storyteller for a few years now, and I still feel like I'm learning new things about the craft every day. So I think for somebody starting out, I would encourage them to look at it like a muscle, right? Like a muscle is something that you need to work out, you need to treat well, you need to give it rest when it needs rest, you need to go hard when you need to go hard. So I think of it less about like it being like a traditional type of skill and more of a muscle. So I think for me, I'm always looking at, okay, like where am I going? How am I evolving as a storyteller? What kind of stories do I really respond to? I think it's also really important with things that are artistic and creative. Find people who inspire you. Study these forms, whether you're a screenwriter, watch films, watch TV. If you're a podcaster, listen to podcasts. I often find that what a successful project comes from a place of authenticity. If you like it and
Mhm.
if it speaks to you, it'll probably speak to other people. It definitely will speak to other people. So those would be my two advice. Think of it as a muscle and start watching, start reading, start listening, see what inspires you, see what makes your light bulbs light up, and then follow that path.
Okay, that is great. And that brings me to the next question because for me, like when I left podcasting for a while and there
Mm,
was a time I was like, okay, I'm going back. I'm really going to go back and then life just happens and I'm like, okay, because for me, podcasting was never a wind down thing. It was a
yeah,
serious thing. It was
yeah.
a thing like I was going into journalism, actually the radio space. I love radio.
Oh,
And
I
and
bet
I
you'd be pumped to get that. I could totally see that for you.
oh, yeah,
Yeah.
baby. So I was like, okay, let me get into radio space and do my thing, like create impact. I was that girl, that small girl with a big dream,
Oh, I love it.
like the next opera of Africa,
Yes,
that
I
kind
love
of thing.
it.
And I had a book where I had different kinds of shows that would impact people. So I started thinking and doing things like, okay, what is the problem in my society?
Mm,
Especially in my family, then my extended, and then my friends. What problem do we naturally face as Africans, or not just as Africans, as humans, our connection? So I was really into that. And then the COVID thing happened, and you know what happened. And then I'm like, okay, instead of me waiting, right, to do
mhm.
something, I got podcasting and I have my phone. So apparently this phone.
Right there.
Yeah, right there. I started talking and I started sharing. And then I didn't have any like a large network to share, like, hey guys, listen. So I just record, do my thing with the phone, post it online, put it on my status on WhatsApp, whoever cares. And if you don't care, I'm just I'm just waiting for the next radio door to open, actually. That's how I got into podcasting. I started talking about real stories, and that's where I found the difficulties in people telling their experience.
Mm.
It's a brave thing to do for someone to actually live through experience and then have
Mm.
the face to come out and say, I was the person behind that experience. I want to
Mhm.
share. It was, I felt, when you watch Netflix and you see some white folks sit on a chair and telling you stuff like, it was a painful thing and they cry, and someone's extending like, oh, that shit is hard.
It is hard. It's really hard and it's scary. It's extremely vulnerable. It is. It is.
Exactly. Like people will see me or hear me and oh my God, the facade, the ego, everything just washes off at that particular moment. I realized people's experience are as personal to them as the air they breathe.
Yeah.
So for someone to come to you to get the confidence to say, okay, let me use your platform
Hmm.
to share my story. It
Mm.
is my experience because the world has opinions, but
Yeah.
I'm still gonna tell it anyway. That
Hmm.
was a tipping point. So how do you get people to trust you enough to be, okay, Chloe, I'm going to get vulnerable with you with my life experience. And how do you also find that balance of not consuming yourself with overly empathizing
Hmm.
and it becomes like fake,
Yeah.
and underappreciating the experience and then you're so opinionated about it? How do you
Mhm.
find that balance in storytelling in the world of podcasts, especially Africans? I don't think
Mm.
white people are opinionated. We are opinionated as Africans. We have culture, we have a history, we have family, we have a pattern of doing things. And baby girl, even the baby in the womb has a opinion about the way they kick. You know what I'm saying? So
I do know what you're saying.
how do African podcasters remove that prejudice from themselves and connect with that person's experience to share the story unbiased, not
Hmm.
colored with their opinions, just tell it
Hmm.
the way it is with
Hmm.
our African traits and prejudice and way of thinking? Okay, now I'm asking a very long question. I hope you got everything.
I think I got the gist. If you want me to explain anything more, you can always ask me another follow-up question. But
Yes,
this is
yes,
the advice I would give.
yes.
I think that we live in a society that, even though of course like societies differ, right? Like you said, like we have our African culture, we have our African society, obviously that looks different than what's going on in the US, in the UK, and all around the world. But I would say this social media age, there's a lot of pressure on us, I think, to be extremely vulnerable publicly. And while I think that there is merit to that to a certain extent, I would suggest for anybody who wants to be in this craft and who wants to be open, I think it's really important that you feel comfortable first, right? Don't talk about things that you aren't ready to talk about. I
Mhm.
try and walk that line really intentionally. I have the pleasure, both in my work as a podcaster and as a journalist, to really be open about some things that are really close to my heart. I'm actually working on a story right now, which is pretty insane. I'm essentially talking to my ex friends to find out insight about why those relationships failed and just insight about how to be a better friend and a better person. And listen, I'll be honest, it's a raw topic, right? And so I have to make sure that I take care of myself throughout that process. So for me, that looks like taking my time. It looks like vocalizing my story first before I integrate theirs, so that I feel like my perspective has been heard. Way to be comfortable about it yourself. There is that pressure can be debilitating. I think once you add that with African cultures not being the most comfortable or forthcoming with vulnerability, it can put African podcasters in a hard spot. So I would say start small. Start with what's happening to you now, what feels true to you now, what's weighing on your heart, and reminding yourself that there's a freeing aspect to it too. As daunting as it sounds and as intimidating that it can be, there is something really powerful for you as an individual when you speak out something. If something is worrying you and you speak it out, oftentimes you will feel some sort of release because you're letting it go to a certain extent. So for me, I try and remind myself, hey, this is something beneficial to me because I'm letting it go. And also there's likely somebody who is reading this, listening to this, watching to this,
Mhm.
who can relate to that. So I try to keep them in mind as well.
That is quite sensitive for you to say that. And kudos to you on
Thank you.
going back to your exes or friends with their
Yeah.
opinions and stories. I know it's not an easy thing to ask
It's
people.
insane. It's insane. It's insane.
Because when you said that,
And
I'm like,
I think it's important to note that I've only gotten to this place after years of figuring out how to take care of myself in my vulnerability. So I think, for somebody starting out, like maybe don't do what I'm doing, but start slow. Don't put pressure on yourself. There's already so much pressure out there on social media for you to be forthcoming with your issues. Take care of yourself, honor yourself. If you aren't ready to talk about something, it's okay. Maybe one day you will, maybe one day you won't. And both is okay.
Exactly. I think we need to do a show. I think I'll tell the APVA community. Let everybody
Yes,
do a show and say, guys, it's okay not to share things sometimes. Just shut
yes,
up and you can heal too.
yes.
It's okay because this whole thing of jumping into a trend, that's where my next topic is actually going to, like,
Yeah.
podcasters. I still life how people try to jump into a specific kind of trend.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so and then they deviate from the vision of what they
Mm-hmm.
started with because they want to be relevant or they want to make waves. They just leave what they wanted to do, what was true to their to themselves, to their heart, and then go into the trending things. And it's very common with storytelling,
Mm-hmm.
with people's experience. You see a podcaster starting out with social stories, things
Yeah.
that had to affect the community. And then all of a sudden, there's a trend of people coming to people's shows and crying about their exes or how they were
Mhm.
abused. And you see this person who has a good audience with a social story goes into abuse and then try to retarget and embellish it into a social thing.
Yeah.
How how do you think that can be worked on for people not to lose their authenticity and their voice
Yeah.
in podcasting, especially when it has to do with telling stories and the
Mhm.
trends and the pressure of social media and the pressure of want to be seen, want to
Mhm.
be heard,
Mhm.
and the pressure of growth,
Yeah.
growing so fast.
Mhm.
What's your expert take on that?
Absolutely. I think the key is in the preparation process. I think that podcasting, first of all, is a way bigger effort than I think a lot of people really understand. It is so hard to put a show together and then to execute that show. So I would say something that I do for my own podcast and for the clients that I work with my podcast production company, Kui Productions, I really encourage taking the time to think about, okay, like what is the purpose of the show? You can figure out what the heart of what you're doing is, then it makes it harder to lose track. If you know ultimately I'm creating a show to teach people about X, Y, and Z, where's that coming from? What's the heart of that? Right? Are you struggling with it yourself? Do you want people to better understand it so that you feel better understood? If you understand the heart and the core of your project, then you won't be able to lose weight. I think a great example is with my podcast, Movie Buffs, which talks about all things movies and TV in Kenya and beyond. It came from a really organic place of myself and my partner loved watching movies and TV and we loved talking about it. And we found that it was a really great way for us to bond as a couple, as friends, as partners. And so that will always be the heartbeat of our show. And we spent a lot of time thinking about, okay, how can we stay true to that core heart of this show? What segments can we do? What guests should we do that all feed back into our genuine love for the movies and TV industry in Africa and outside of it? So I think I would encourage people, listen, if you have your passion, fuel it into think about it, really think about like what are the themes of the show. Themes are timeless. Trends come and go, but themes are universal and they're timeless. Themes like coming of age, struggles of life, figuring out love, those things will never change. So if you can hook
At
your
all.
project to those themes of life that are very real and that are true to you, then you got a gold mine.
So basically, from all of what we're saying, it feels like, okay, the whole African youths are coming out to say stuff. That is not the case, guys. That is
Yeah.
not the case.
Mm-mm.
But my question to you now is,
Yeah.
from your opinion and experience, how much stories and experience in the African community do you think is underrepresented?
Absolutely. I say this a lot when I'm talking about my company and our vision for the company. I find, and this I think is particularly the case in Kenya, and I'll be the first to say I have more to learn about about the podcasting space in other countries. So I don't want this to seem like it's a blanket term, but what I have experienced is that African storytelling, and that's both within and outside of podcasting, we tend to like the extremes, right? So we either like extreme poverty or extreme wealth.
Wealth.
So something that I am really curious about that my production company really is interested in championing are the voices in the middle. Like I want to hear about, everyday African people. What are you doing? How are you feeling? What is your life? Those are the stories that I really want to hear. And beyond that too, other kinds of African experiences. So for example, for me, I grew up predominantly in the US and the UK. But I feel very strongly and I really love my African identity. But oftentimes I feel like that's stripped of me, and I think that's sometimes an issue within our community. We tend to limit ourselves by thinking that Africanness can only look like one certain thing, and so I
Mhm.
really think I would love to see stories that challenge that notion. Africanness can be so many different kinds of things. You can be African in Africa, you can be African outside of Africa, you can be African on the moon, and I really would love to see that. I would love for us to challenge ourselves as a culture to see ourselves in different ways. So yeah, those are the stories that I'm really interested in. A lot of the middle and a lot of other experiences that I don't feel like people really count as African, but are to me are absolutely African.
And examples of such stories are?
Yeah, I think someone like I think I go back to myself all the time, right? I would love to hear about third culture people like myself, Africans who have African in them, have American in them, have European in them, have Asian in them. I want to hear about their perspectives. And aside from that, too, I want to hear those everyday people. I want to hear about Sarah, who has a shop in town and who is hustling every day to get her merchandise sold and to get another bigger opportunity. I want to hear about Kamau in this community and how he wants to become an engineer. I want to hear about the people in the middle, the people who are just trying to figure it out. To me, I think that every day is oftentimes the most interesting. It's the most real. It's what really speaks to me. And so it's those people. It's the people who are us in so many different
That is
ways.
amazing. And what would you take on people who actually don't understand what it means to be true? I say that loosely,
Yeah.
in the sense that truly African is subjective.
Yeah.
There is no, that's why I say I use that very loosely.
Yeah.
However, there is a common thread of struggle
Hmm.
with the African continent. And that
Hmm.
is an African child as a first child
Mm.
or as a last child who life made you the first.
Mm.
There is this heritage
Mm.
you have to carry on.
Mm.
Those stories, what propels African youths to leave their moms and dad, their sisters, their brothers, to maybe walk through a desert to get to another country for better life and
Mhm,
then send money home for
mhm,
their family.
mhm,
What is your take about the weight of the cultural heritage of family,
mhm,
getting one out the door to take the whole pack out of the hole into a better life, that kind of story? Because if you watch in the individual stories, you just like example you gave, like yourself or Carl trying to be an engineer, there is a
yeah,
weight of a pack after him. And he will tell you,
mhm,
I have younger ones coming after me. Oh,
mhm,
I have an elder one who's useless. So practically
mhm,
I have to pick up the rope or else everything just falls apart.
mhm,
What's your take on those kind of story? And how would you advise our generation, the African outspoken ones, to
mhm.
represent that story, not in an extreme poverty way, because
Yeah.
it's not that, guys. It's not that. We can afford a mug in Africa. We are not poor and crying everywhere. So so but how would you advise a podcaster to channel that power? That's a huge story. But the
Yeah.
way we tell it is the problem. What
Mhm.
what do you think is wrong with the way we tell our stories, and how can we fix it?
I think I think sometimes the way that we can tell our stories are a little bit monolithic. I think that sometimes we tend to play it safe. I think. Even when it comes to commenting on aspects of our culture that maybe aren't as positive, or even the ones that are positive, we tend to approach them in a way that has been done before. And listen, I understand, right? Because there's also realities to, if you want to create a successful product, of course, you're going to be influenced by what else is out there on the market. But I would really encourage podcasters to be creative, think about something differently. I think going back to my previous conversation, think about who you are as a creative. Prior to me getting into the media space, I thought a lot about what I want to tell, what stories speak to me. And I really spent time honing in on, okay, who am I? What is my voice? And so I think that really is the key. And when people really invest in that process and invest in themselves, I think that's where the uniqueness comes.
And that is a beautiful take on that. And the examples of people extremely wealthy in Africa
Yeah.
and extremely poor in Africa, and then you see, okay, let me shake some little table here,
Yeah,
guys.
take it up, take it up.
It's not just Africans that tell extreme stories. We go
Yeah.
to Asians. They have
Yeah.
they have re-evaluated what love is in real life. You would
Hmm.
not see an African man running in the rain for you, baby girl. Those K-dramas don't don't put it as reality. They are telling you
Yeah.
stories in an extreme way that
Yeah.
in reality you would not really get it. An African love is I provide for you, I give you
Mhm.
money, you have a roof over your head. I go
Mhm.
to work and come back. I'm not talking to other women or sleeping around. And even if I sleep around, I come back home to you. That's
You
some
know,
people's African typical way of I love you. But you can't see him with a rose flower outside your door, raining, and there's a cool music playing in the background. And girl, no, please, please,
you know,
Jesus.
I think you
Don't.
bring up something really interesting. I think that is very much, and I think, let me also say too, I think that we shouldn't abandon telling the extremes, right? Like, absolutely. I think that there should be an element of whimsy and dramatics. I think that's always fun in entertainment and storytelling. So I don't think that we should abandon them. I think we should more fill in the center. But to your point, yeah, that's very much a part of African stories. But there's also others that don't look like that. So for example, there are African stories where the mom is the provider and she has a different
Mhm.
relationship like that. So that's why I tend to challenge commentary that is African stuff looks like this. Because I'm like, there's so much more than that. And I think that we do tend to sometimes limit ourselves by thinking that it only looks like this way. I actually think that we could have a, running in the rain, like African love story. Is it realistic? Maybe not. But also, I think to a certain extent, entertainment doesn't always need to be super realistic. You know what I mean? I actually would really love to see, although it definitely wouldn't happen in real life. I agree to you. Maybe it will,
Mhm.
but probably not. I would actually love to see like a hyper romantic love actually type of story in Africa. I think that's a beautiful thing to show people that love doesn't have to always look like this certain way.
X,
And
Y, Z. Yeah. That is
yeah,
that is beautiful. Okay, now we've gotten into the love stories. Sorry, guys. And
yeah, we've really got off topic, but
this is where it's sweet, but we could stay here and talk a lot, but the time of the program is just so short.
oh
But
man, I wish I could come back.
the time for me and you is still long, darling.
It
But
is still long. It is still long.
but
We should
we
have our
should,
own show.
yes, exactly. Gosh.
We should.
Our wine show,
You
but
know,
we should not tell them it's water. So
just water today. Just water today.
okay. I
Mm,
absolutely agree with the belief of there should be a way of things getting into one place at a time. I absolutely agree with that. There
mm,
should be a place for the extreme, and there should
mm,
be a place for facts, for truth,
mm,
for reality, and there should be a place for the average.
mm,
However, we are in a
mm,
time and space where
mm.
everything is blown out of proportion. So we have
That's true.
so many extremes and people trying to make
Mm,
the extreme a standard. And then you see the
mm,
people who were just naturally average thinking something is
mhm,
wrong with them.
mhm,
Okay. Now that is something I see
mm,
podcasting has influenced trends by
mhm.
podcasters coming up with extreme examples of their experiences
Right.
or their life, and the little
Mhm.
girl who's just listening, who's just the average, starts thinking there's something
Yeah.
wrong with me, and they try to catch up. So
Yeah.
everybody around me, for me, they're just trying to catch up with the trend, with
Mm-hmm.
what's the aim thing. So
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to ask you if podcasting influences trend. We know it does. However,
Yeah.
how can we also safeguard the truism
Yeah.
of the reality we spread across with our experience?
Mm-hmm.
And there is a place for extreme. But the
Yes.
place for fact and truth has been washed away to the barest minimum that sometimes you don't even feel is there. You have
Yeah.
to you have to embellish, you have to exaggerate. Does the push
Mm-hmm.
just to round up the show? What
Mm-hmm.
what do you advise on people who are listening? Because it's not just podcasters. Podcasters, we have a lot of work to do because we're a voice. Someone's going to take our voice as a role model, no matter how small your podcast is, someone is actually
That's very
looking up to
true.
you. But
Mm-hmm.
how do we tell listeners? How do you filter what
Yeah.
is you and what is, oh no, baby, I ain't doing that.
Yeah,
Welcome
so I
back.
think for people to understand that podcasting is still relatively in its infancies in Africa. I like to say it's like we're in a teenage phase with podcasting, right? Like it's everyone's kind of trying to figure it out. You know, some people are trying to be really rebellious. There's a lot of stuff out there. So I think for listeners, I'll say specifically, I think that it is important what you surround yourself by. And I think the wonderful thing about the digital age is that there's so much there's so many kinds of content to
Exactly.
consume. So I think it's about being intentional about who you follow, what you watch, what you listen to. You know what I mean? Make sure that it's a reflection of not only who you are but who you want to be. If something is making you feel bad, don't watch it, don't listen to it, right? And if you find that you can't find your own African podcast that is speaking to you, I think that might be the seed for starting your own. Again, we're growing, we're building, it's a new space. This is the time for people to come in, whether you don't need to have fancy equipment, you don't need to have all kinds of money. Just go get on your phone, tell your story, and then see where it takes you. Fill in those gaps
Exactly.
for yourself.
Exactly. And
Mhm.
just to piggyback from what you said about if what you're listening to is making you feel bad, don't do it. I want to try and put that in perspective. There's
Yeah.
sometimes you're going through an experience and someone is telling you the truth. Truth hurts. You don't
Hmm.
feel good when you hear truth. Don't stop listening to the truth.
Yeah.
It feels bad because you know what you're doing is bad. And someone is actually
Yeah.
telling you that, yeah, what you're doing is bad. So when you see that, I think that should be a reflective time for you. Don't
Yeah.
pause it and say, I'm not going to listen to this person. No, that's why
Absolutely.
the whole world is turning upside down because people are so in tune with your feelings and feelings fade. Guys, you
Mhm.
can wake up to feel like a moon tomorrow, and at night or the next couple of seconds later, you are a star.
Yeah.
Feelings fade, but what stays the same is the persons, the commitment, the relationship, the things that you need to feed, not the feelings. Because that's what I would say. Love is not a feeling. Love
Yeah.
is a commitment. So I'm in
That's
love with you.
beautiful.
It's I'm committed to you.
Yeah.
Because the butterflies just you feel, they fade. That is just the initial biological response. Oh my God, I need to mate right now. That's what
Yeah.
that thing is saying. And
Mhm.
we are not animals because when animals feel butterfly, they hump on each other. No
Yeah.
questions asked. But when we
Yeah.
feel that urge, biological urge of you're attracted to the person, go get him. And you're like, let me wait and see. That is a butterfly. That's not love. That is just your biological response to. So
Yeah.
just to
Absolutely.
piggyback from what Koi said to us about finding something, filter what you listen to, because ultimately what you listen, what you consume, that's what you become
Absolutely.
unconsciously, consciously, otherwise. So always try to listen to things above you that are leading to the person you want to be, or
Yeah.
you were convinced deep down that this is what God wants me to be. Like Africans, we are in tune with religion. So I don't know what kind of God you may be serving, or if you're listening to the show right now, watching us, whatever it is you believe in. But I believe in Jesus. And if Jesus
Mhm.
said, this is the person you need to be, and Jesus said, this is the person I want to be, I should listen to people who are Jesus is filled, who tells
Yeah.
stories from a Jesus perspective. I should not be listening to people from uh Illuminati perspective, just to say an extreme quote here.
Oh.
So, so, so guys, that is how much we can take with Koi Koi. It has been an amazing journey. But guys, before we go, I need to read some of her posts. Please not just sitting down here enjoying my vibe because yeah, damn, I'm good. Right? You
You
know,
know, you're
right?
good. Good job. This is so great. I had such a great time. This is amazing.
Oh my God. It was beautiful talking to you, but let's get the guests to get to know you because Koi
Yes.
has she is a journalist, guys, a producer. So if you want to produce your show, if you're struggling on how to produce, you can actually reach out to her on Instagram and at Koi Hawaii, right?
Kui Mwai. You know what? You give it your best shot. Don't even worry about it. It's at Kui Mwai, at
Yeah,
KUIMWAI. Got you.
yeah, so she can actually help you out with your production. And Koi is a podcaster. She's committed in telling stories. So if you are also wanting to share your experience on her show, DM her right away. And she also is a writer, guys. You heard her
Yes.
say that like a lot of times, right?
Yes.
At Blavity, and she's also a freelancer on Essence, Bustu, Refinery 29, Cosmopolitan. Oh my God! You want
Yes,
Cosmo?
she got the bylines. Yeah.
So I'm talking with a eat person right here. Guys, you don't know what you have. DM
Stop
her right
flattering me,
away.
Neil. Stop flattering me.
No, seriously, Cosmopolitan, really? And Ellie UK and many more. She attended the 2023 Sundance as part of the institution's Press Inclusion Initiative and a selected program film writer. She hosts and produces two podcasts, Movie Buffs, like, oh my God, I'm going to be in that podcast because I'm a movie buff,
You
and
gotta come
Something to
on.
Say with V and K. After just a few weeks since going live, the former reached South Africa's top 100 podcasts exploring the TV and film industry. Okay, let me confess, guys, I didn't know I was actually discussing with a celebrity.
Stop.
Now I find out
Stop. I like to think that I am. I'm just kidding.
she is Jesus. Oh my God, who are you kidding? You are.
Don't gas me like this. I love it.
And
I live
guys, Chloe has also had the pleasure of working in several writers' rooms as a screenwriter for established and upcoming Showmax projects. Jesus, including Big Girl, Small World, and Single Casey. Oh, I watch Big Girl, Small God, really? Oh my God. Can I have your autograph, please?
Oh my gosh.
Just
Can I also say there's nothing that makes me feel more shy than somebody reading my bio back to me? Because you know, when you write your bio, you have to be like a little like boastful about yourself. And so there's a part of me that's like, oh my God, this is like, but I'm also like, it's giving me life. You are giving me life.
you are spectacular,
Thank
amazing.
you
So,
so
guys,
much.
if
You
you
are
don't
spectacular.
understand what I've been reading since celebrity. She's a
Oh my
celebrity
God.
writer, a podcaster, and she has lots of experience you could actually tap from. And guess what? She's not a celebrity that you go into your DM and they don't answer you. She will answer
Stop.
you. She
Stop.
would she would want to work with you if
I
you're
answer all my
workable,
DMs. I answer
but
all
she
my
doesn't. Yeah, just
DMs.
she's taken, by the way. She has a partner, and they're so much in love. We could hear and feel your love story from this is the part of extreme we're talking about. But it's been an amazing time with you, and thank you so much for giving me your time today and discussing with you. And right off the bat, we just started connecting and vibing.
Immediately vibing.
Like it
Immediately
was
vibing.
it was beautiful. I'm actually looking forward to our show. What should we call it?
I know we gotta start brainstorming. You know what I'm saying? We gotta get some worksheets going. Gotta get a Google Doc. We'll throw some ideas. It could be so much. But no, thank you so
Because
much for your
we could
time.
actually talk
It
a
truly is
lot.
a pleasure. We could do so
Yeah.
much. There's so much we could do.
And I would love to read your work. I've
Oh,
seen your movies on Showmax. I didn't know you were in there. So
oh my
yeah,
gosh, girl.
I will go back and rewatch it just to look at the screencast and like, oh my God. And I'll take a picture
Oh
and I'll
my
put it on
gosh.
WhatsApp. This girl right here, I know her. Yeah, yeah,
You
yeah.
need to have several of your own shows. Your energy is so infectious. Thank you so much for just gassing me up and giving me life. It's the highlight of my week. I'm going into Wednesday just fully energized.
And that's the spirit, guys. And I hope you all out there are actually energized with the spirit, or starting something that is missing, or trying to filter what you listen to. Because podcasting is here to
Yes.
stay, is growing. You can either jump on board or be the wagon to say hello to people who are doing it, be good fans, and also try to be impactful with the African society. But most importantly, don't lose your African authenticity and your reality. Okay? The white is white, black is black, brown is brown, and black is king, according to Beyonce. So yeah, you know what I mean, right?
I
Yeah.
love it.
No,
I
we ain't
love
racist. We're just saying try to tell your stories, try to tell your experience in a very truthfully African way. Don't embellish it with things that are not your culture. But if you experience other people's culture in their land, you can tell their story according to their culture. But don't try to mix. Nah, no, we don't like experimenting in African culture. You know what I mean? Uh-huh. All right, so till we meet again with another wonderful guest and a beautiful host. Maybe not me, someone else. Hopefully me. I would look up to the APVA goddess to connect us. But thank you for this beautiful connection.
Thank you
Please
for this beautiful
send
connection.
me send. I would back office. I would take your contact because we need to start.
We
And
go make changes.
guys,
Yeah, we go talk.
we have Emma, who is APVA face. She's Africa. The mic thing you see there, that's Emma behind that person. She's an amazing person. She's beautiful. And she's just like you listening to us right now with different questions and different things. But the best thing you need to do is, we were saying something before uh Zoom started saying recording in progress. We were saying if you're filled with so much creative juice, the medium to start should not be your problem. You can start on your WhatsApp status or your Instagram account, whatever social media you feel comfortable with. However, the topic should be what you're most passionate about. So you can talk about anything, but start with something that resonates with you as a person. It could be cartoons, movies, music, relationships, politics, it could be religion, it could be what ending, it could be Mars, living in Mars, or surviving zombies, whatever it is your mind can create. But let it be something you're passionate about. And you someday be like Koi, writing passionate stories for the big screen, impacting people out there. So don't get too technical about starting, just start. On that
We
note,
believe in you.
yes, we do. Till we meet again. What's
We'll
your
meet
final words,
again.
Chloe? Say bye to our audience
Bye,
because
everybody. Thank you so much for listening, watching. We love you. We believe in you. You got this.